Welcome. My name is Sam Davidson, the CEO of Nashville Entrepreneur Center. Today, in our latest episode of Circle Back, I get to interview Jason Moore, founder of Stratasan. Jason was one of the first entrepreneurs to use the EC services when it newly launched over 10 years ago. We're going to get to hear all about the ups and downs of entrepreneurship through Jason's experience. He's going to tell us true stories of failure, some of success, but ultimately his story of circling back, now as an exited entrepreneur who actively supports our entrepreneurial ecosystem. Nashville Entrepreneur Center is a 501c3 organization located in the heart of Nashville, and we have a mission to help make Nashville the best place to start and grow in business by helping increase the likelihood of success for entrepreneurs. As always, the Circle Back podcast series is made possible by the generous support of the Beth and Randy Chase Family, as well as the Nashville Post. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and learn more at ec.co/circleback. Now, on to the show. All right, welcome to the newest edition of Circle Back. I'm here with Jason Moore. We're going to hear his story of entrepreneurship and what that has meant for his life, his journey. So we're going to let him talk about it. Jason, welcome.
Thanks, Sam. Really honored to be here.
That's right. Maybe we'll get into some of our overlap in our story, but let's start with you first. Question I like to ask first of all our guests. Tell us, who is the first entrepreneur that you ever knew, that you ever met, that you remember?
Well, that's an interesting question to ask me, especially since you didn't prep me for that. But growing up, I grew up in rural Kentucky, Henderson, Kentucky. And it's funny you asked me who the first entrepreneur I know, because honestly, that wasn't a word that I even really understood. I think it was probably 8 years after founding my first company that I actually ever referred to myself as an entrepreneur. I always kind of reserved that for the Bill Gates and Michael Dell and the real entrepreneurs. And I really was kind of ashamed's not the right word, but hesitant to refer to myself as that, and then it became more prevalent. So really, when I was in high school, my mom will always say I definitely beat by a different drum, and always talked about owning my own business. Yeah. So once again, not an entrepreneur, but owning my own business. And my worldview then at that time was maybe owning like a local lawn care company, or thought about opening like being a masseuse or something. But that was like my level of understanding of what an entrepreneur could be. Was a small business owner, which is definitely the heartbeat of America. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, my best friend's dad owned a very successful CPA firm. Mm-hmm. So I guess Benson Campbell III.
There you go.
Had a great CPA firm.
The sexiest of entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
So then talk to us a little bit more about Kentucky, about then how you grew up, what that vision was if entrepreneur was not part of the vocabulary, but you have become one, which we'll get into that. Walk us through sort of what those early years look like. You said you marched to the beat of a different drum. So yeah, what did childhood, what did growing up look like? What were those ambitions that little Jason had long ago?
Little Jason, I think my mom said the first thing I ever said I wanted to do was be a milkman. We didn't have milkmen. I'm not quite that old, and we're not quite that rural. Sure. But she assumes that I may have seen an episode of like a Bugs Bunny cartoon where milkman was part of it.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
So milkman was my first aspiration. People talk about growing up in entrepreneurial families. That wasn't me. My dad was a union electrician. Worked for a power company, and my mom was a receptionist at a dentist's office. I have one older sister, and also not entrepreneurial. And coming from a rural community like that, there's a lot of inertia against you getting out. There's a lot of, it's hard to get the ball rolling because once again that worldview really doesn't show a lot of opportunities like that. You don't get exposed to other things. Mm-hmm. So I went to community college my first 2 years in Henderson,
in Kentucky, yeah,
and really wanted to get out to see something else, and ended up fortunately getting into University of Georgia way before the standards were as high as they are now, because I would not be accepted today. But went to Georgia my junior year, and that kind of started opening my eyes to other things.
And so how did you find Georgia? How did Georgia find you?
Good question. So once again, worldview. I kind of thought I wanted to be in an SEC school. I looked at like Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Murray State because of rural Kentucky again. But luckily I had friends that had gone on to college, and two of my friends had gone to Georgia. And so those first 2 years I would go and visit.
Yeah.
And when I went down there, it was just gorgeous campus, a lot of fun people, just a lot of energy, and really, started setting my eyes on that.
And then what did you study? What did you want to be when you left there? Did college have any bearing on where you've ended up?
No. I started college, I think my first major, getting back to my friend's dad, was accounting. This was at community college, and my professor was also the department head because the departments weren't very big at a community college. And at the end of the semester, I was the highest score in the class, and he's like, "So I see you have an accounting major." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I think you should change that. This is not, he was a CPA. He went to Notre Dame and IU, and he was actually friends with my dad's, or my friend's dad. And he was like, this is just not what you want to do. I can just tell by your personality you don't want to do this." So I then went to journalism major. Side note, we had a comedy sketch show in college. Amazing. Suede Cheese TV.
Suede Cheese TV?
Suede Cheese TV. The guy that started the company, or started the show and kind of pulled me along, his name was Dax Rohr, and he now has a Grammy? Emmy?
Yeah.
What is that, TV shows?
Yeah.
He has an Emmy because he was the director of photography for one of the Survivor seasons that won an Emmy.
And had it not been for your influence on Suede Cheese TV, who knows where he would have been? What was you were an actor? You were a participant in this troupe?
Talent.
Talent.
Yeah.
Talent, that's right.
On air
on
talent.
Stage? On age? Yeah, great. All right.
Yep. Had a recurring character called the Juggler.
Did you juggle, or you weren't good at juggling? Was there a...
I wouldn't say I'm good at juggling.
What was the arc to this character?
I'm no Mark Deutschman.
Sure.
But I can throw three things in the air at the same time and generally catch them.
Great.
Yeah.
Any footage of this exists?
Lord, no.
Okay.
I have a VHS tape that would be hard pressed to find.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were the juggler on Suede Cheese TV in college, switched to journalism. Where did you end up? Did you finish? Are you still enrolled?
Philosophy.
Okay.
So yeah, of course, philosophy. So journalism, and really one of the things is when I put my eyes on Georgia, Georgia's got a great journalism program. So I was going to kind of tie those two things in. One of the worst bits of advice I got was another businessman in Henderson when I was going to Georgia. I was just going to be a business management. He just said, that's just a bad idea. You need to be more specialized. And so I went into journalism, and then I'm like, this isn't where I should be. And so then I kind of got behind the eight ball of transferring and then being in a major that didn't have a whole lot of credits that would go towards anything. So I ended up having to go to a counselor and saying, okay, what is the degree I can get to get out of here? The quickest. Yep. And philosophy ended up being it. And I'm glad I have that, degree.
So what door did that open?
Friends' doors that I could sleep on their couch.
And was that the next door you walked through?
Pretty much.
Great.
Yeah. Yep. So then took a job. Actually, back up after college, I really loved the movie Cocktail and wanted that to be my life, I guess, for a little while at least. So went to the Cayman Islands and interviewed for some jobs. Got a job at the Marriott. This was in May, June-ish sometime. Scheduled to start in October. Hurricanes hit that year, so they weren't bringing on any new employees. They were only keeping the ones on. So my job got canceled. So then I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Because I had this really great life goal going, and that got ruined. So took a job with a local company in my hometown just to get a job, and they moved into Cincinnati. Very quickly, probably made the realization that I would never be a great employee.
Okay.
So ended up starting a company with a couple of buddies in Atlanta. Moved to Atlanta with all my earthly possessions in a car that I bought in a Walmart parking lot the night before I drove to Atlanta, and slept on people's couches for a little while until I found roommates, and then started what would now be called a software as a service company. That term hadn't really been coined. And
what year was that?
99, 2000.
Okay, so you could have been in the Caribbean. Instead, you end up by way of hometown, almost Cincinnati, back in Atlanta, or back in Georgia, in Atlanta. in a car you just bought out of a Walmart parking lot, sleeping on couches. This is exactly the ingredients of a successful entrepreneurial journey. We've got the elements.
And then
let's connect them now.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada. Here we are. So early days of a SaaS company, we didn't call it that. So what was that company? How did you know? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't seem like you had a lot of reason not to start it. So talk to about, again, but why do it? Especially if you really wanted to be your version of Tom Cruise from Cocktail. Yeah, why start it? Why try it? Other than why not?
So I always wanted to start a company, right? Like I always wanted to do that, not knowing exactly what that meant. And one of the guys I met in college, one of the two guys that one of the reasons I went to Georgia, and then another guy we met in college, those were the three co-founders of this company. The guy I didn't know, he was the tech guy. And we would call every now and then, we'd talk every now and then, and he would always say, "Man, when are you moving to Atlanta?" And my answer just generally became, "When we start a company together." So he called me one day. I was driving home from Dayton back to Cincinnati, and reminder, I didn't really like this job very much. And he calls and said, "When are you moving to Atlanta? When we start a company together?" "Well, that's why I'm calling." I'm like, "Okay, good. You got you have a business plan, whatever." He goes, "I'll send you something." Send me an email, went home, dial up, got an email. The business plan was like 3 sentences, like, I'm in. Like it was.
Yeah, if you can't fit it on a napkin,
right.
I'm not interested.
Yeah. And I called my boss that night and kind of put him a notice. I said, "Hey, how long do you need to train somebody in this territory?" So I ended up working another 7 or 8 weeks. They moved somebody up. I trained them. And then that's when the Walmart, because I had to give my company car away to the guy coming up to Cincinnati, because I didn't own a car at the time, and drove to Atlanta and started a company.
So for you, was there any seed money in this thing? Was it a traditional, let's raise money, let's try to grow this thing? Or was it like, we'll figure it out, sleep on couches? It sounds like it was pretty frugal to start, but maybe that was just you as opposed to where they were?
Yeah, we had no clue what we were doing.
Got it.
Like, I mean, legitimately, to validate that story, Pat, the guy that went to Georgia from Henderson, and I knew, he was our CEO. Mm-hmm. I love that. It's hilarious.
Every time you called him that, did you sort of laugh and chuckle? Did he roll his eyes? Like,
yes.
One of those.
So our very first deal, Pat was cold calling. To give you a general time frame, we used to spam fax.
Spam fax.
And we had a list of fax numbers, and we had a flyer, and people would show up the next day and faxes from us.
Onto the floor. Yeah,
legitimately faxes from us. So anyway, our very first deal, Pat had called this guy in North Carolina. There was a school district, and he tells him what we're doing. This guy's name's Mike. Mike said, "Man, that sounds..." So it basically like rattled back off to Pat exactly what we were trying to do. 0 customers. And he goes, "Man, that sounds good. Like, I need to get you a PO." And Pat's like, "Hey, Mike, do you mind holding for a second?" He put it on hold, turned around and asked what a PO was.
Excellent.
John's like, "Get a number. Get a number."
Right.
So Pat, that's all he gets. Unpauses or unmutes himself. "Hey, Mike, can I get a number?" So, "Do you mean a PO number?" He goes, "Yeah." So Guam has to actually like go to the office and like get that approved and stuff. But it is, I have the budget and we can get it. And Pat's like, "That's great." And he hung up, and that ended up being our very first.
And you had no product at that point. You were going to go build it once you sold something?
No, we had a product. So John had a cable pulling IT company where he had contracts, and basically it was a help desk ticketing system, kind of like a Zendesk is today. So that's the original product. John had built it over a weekend because he needed it for incoming calls and faxes and emails. So the company's, I have to pronounce this very clearly because it can be very quickly heard differently than how it should be. So it's Big Web Apps.
Yep.
Take that wherever you want to take it.
Noted.
And they weren't just web apps; they were big ones. Yeah. And man, we did so many things wrong. There was not an entrepreneur center around. There were no, like, mentors were really hard to find. And let me get back to, like, we had no clue what we were doing.
In retrospect, good that there wasn't an entrepreneur center around?
Yes.
You would have been shut down or laughed out or
100%.
Maybe guided a little better. But so you had this, but you sold it to a school district, which is some people would say very difficult to sell to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And they were like, so this guy was like, I want a big web app for my school. Here's your PO. You went to work. Did that work? Did it satisfy the customer?
We ran that company for 10 years. It's still in operation. It's now called Sherpa Desk.
Okay.
I left in 2010 as I was actually entering the Entrepreneur Center.
That's right.
September 1st, 2010. First day was opened.
There you go.
Kind of coming back to like you're lucky, or I was lucky that there wasn't an Entrepreneur Center because I'd have been shut down and not accepted. Well, I mean, I had 10 years experience when I walked in the door to meet Michael Bertram the first time. And he still said at the end of my pitch, Jason, I like you. It seems like you're onto something, but that's the worst pitch I ever heard. And that was after 10 years of experience.
Yeah.
So, just think about how bad we were 10 years prior to that.
Yeah, so you had 10 years into this, learned a lot, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, made some money? There was some money around?
So it started in 2000.
I mean, it was enough to have you work there for 10 years. Because you have a family now. I've seen pictures.
Yeah.
So I assume some of that happened during this time.
So there are restaurants in Atlanta that you can wait tables at.
Okay, great. I see.
So in 2002, we ran out of money, like 100%.
So like year 2-ish?
Yeah.
3? Okay.
Yeah, 2. So we had an office that we were subletting in downtown Atlanta. Kind of silly, but the world's changed so much. And we had several employees. We had to let all of them go. And we had to stop paying ourselves. So the only thing that we continued, kind of getting back to a story that I tell sometimes, one of my entrepreneurial journey stories is the time I lied to my mom. Was when we were starting this company. I was working for this company and it was known to have good benefits. And to, somebody that lived their life, receptionist, dentist office, and union electrician, benefits were the thing, right? So she was like, so are you going to have benefits and are you going to have health insurance? And I had gotten commitment from the 2 other partners that we would get health insurance. So I told Mom we did have it and we really didn't. Right. For a couple of months, I was in like limbo with my mom. She actually recently found this out, probably in the last year and a half, 2 years, that I was lying to her for like 3 months.
Yeah, if there's anything else you want to tell her on this and she tunes in, just feel free.
Well, nah. We'll pass.
Fair.
So where were we?
Running out of money.
Oh, yeah, we ran out of money. I don't know if you watch Silicon Valley. Maybe people that listen to us watch Silicon Valley. The episode where they had to steal all their own equipment and it falls out of the back of the truck, legit PTSD. I mean, it was...
In order to, because it was all downtown Atlanta, you had to get out.
We wrote this script. I mean, like legitimately wrote the script. So we were on like the, 20-something floor in the towers in Atlanta. And we had to bounce on our sublease, right? And so we got a permission with the maintenance crew or whatever. So we were going to be swapping out our servers because we had all our servers housed in our own office. We weren't really swapping anything in. We had a U-Haul truck.
That's right.
In the back. We had one of our school district clients had agreed to house our servers.
On their smart fridges, their network of smart fridges.
Well, the thing is so this is kind of part of how our business, there was a funding source. I think it was Al Gore had sponsored it called E-rate funding.
Oh, yeah. And
it was based on, so it was to help rural school districts and I think Alabama, I think anywhere but the South really is hit because it was based on the number of children in your school district that were on subsidized lunch. So if you had, and many of these rural counties have like 90+% of their students that are on subsidized lunch. So E-rate funding basically matched the percentage of number. That was your discount to get internet in your school district.
Okay.
All the way to the wall, right? So these rural school districts were having like at the time like point-to-point gig like networks.
Wow.
They were amazing networks.
Yeah.
So yeah, our servers were like quite safe in this rural county. Anyway, we were basically stealing our own equipment. Didn't know if we were going to pull it off. This was literally like one of the many Hail Marys we had to throw. But it's like 1:30 in the morning. We had been slaving away. Server racks are not light. We didn't exactly have like a lot of people helping. It was just me and my two partners. Anyway, we got all of it. Like we had like blankets and pillows that we were laying our servers on. We were driving, I think, 3 hours away down to South Georgia. And anyway, like the security guard was there. He was lighting up the big cargo doors, and it was legit like it was amazing.
We're gonna pull it off.
John takes off. I'm sitting in the middle of the U-Haul truck. John and Pat are on my flanks, and forgets about Granny's attic or Grandma's attic, and literally crashes into the cargo door, and it kind of like shuts down on the truck, like on the top of so we can't get out. Right? I'm like, Pat's like, I knew it. I knew this wasn't going to work. I'm like, well, of course you knew it. Like, because so anyway, John's over there like pulling the chains, and those big cargo, it's not like this blind here where you pull it and like you see a pretty equal and opposite, pretty small pulley. These are on like multiple pulleys. So you're like yanking it and it's going like centimeters at a time. So we're like working. We finally get in. The security guy's like, well, what number? Like, what suite are you in? We're probably going to have to charge you for this. And we were already kind of ditching a sublease anyway.
Yeah, right.
4420 or what, I don't remember the office number. 4420, and we just take off. And we end up next morning getting it set up in the school district. And Big Web Apps was back up and running Monday morning.
Okay, so you threw that Hail Mary. It was caught. And then you clearly persevered for what, 7 or 8 more years?
Yeah. And so went 10 months without a paycheck. Waited tables, so it was, so I was living in the basement of like one of my partners. I would get up and start cold calling, early in the morning, till 2:33. Then I would shower, put on the restaurant uniform, and be there at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and wait tables and
do it again
the next day.
And you were like, "This is what I want to be doing.
This is amazing." It's like, no, it sucked actually, but also amazing. It was all the things.
Yeah, and then any other sort of big lessons, highs, lows, comical relief of those other years before you were like, and or even the moment where you're like, maybe I'll move to Nashville and start a company. I've heard about the EC. Or whatever order those things
happened in. So 04, so only a couple more years, or well, one more year, 03. I get married. Okay. And our first child was due on our 1-year anniversary. He came a week late, so there's 1 year and 1 week later, we have a bouncing baby boy. I had made a promise to my wife, well, then fiance, that when we had kids, she's from Nashville. So when we had kids, we would move to Nashville, be closer to home or be closer to her family because they're here. My family's only 2 hours north of here. I didn't realize that would happen so quickly.
Sure. Trying
to build a company, yada, yada. So anyway, 2 weeks after our oldest son was born in June of 04, we were moving up here, moving in with my in-laws with a 2-week-old and looking for a house.
Because you were an entrepreneur, baby.
Entrepreneur. Like,
then you picked her up. She was like, "What do you do?" You're like, "I'm an entrepreneur."
It's like I have $14 in my bank account.
That's right.
And $18,000 on my credit card.
There you go. But have you heard of Big Web Apps?
Yeah. It's going to be big.
So you moved to Nashville, new baby, entrepreneur, living with the in-laws, and you're still like in a city that at the time Nashville was very different then, of course.
100%.
But still promising, growing, not as much as maybe we've seen recently, but you're still like, no, I'm sticking with this.
So I liked Atlanta. Always liked Atlanta. I didn't know anybody in Nashville, except my in-laws, but immediately loved this place. Like really, truly, this is a story I've told since 04, since I've been here. For whatever reason, I really just truly fell in love with this city. It's changed a lot, and I think in mostly positive ways. The movie The Big Short, absolutely on those tables. Like, we bought a house. No way did we qualify for anything. My wife was, she had a good job in Atlanta. We decided that she was going to stay at home with the new baby. I wasn't making anything. We basically never prove anything. We just like write some numbers down, and a guy shows up, and like we signed the paperwork. And when he left, I literally looked at Mary. I'm like, something's wrong, because
we have a house now.
There's no way.
You don't have a job, and I barely have one.
Yeah. Actually, she has more of a job than I did, and hers only paid slightly less.
Yeah.
And I mean, legit, when he walked out, I was like, there is something wrong, but we do have a house, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And then we all know what happened from there.
And then what is it that finally, so if it wasn't that, what made you to the point of like, okay, I'm out of web apps, I'm into this new idea I have?
Oh, so once again, this is 2004.
Yeah. So there's still 6 more years.
6 more years
of this journey that you stick it out.
Yeah.
And again, yes, entrepreneurship can look like perseverance, but it also sort of knowing when to take your losses and try to play a new game. But
well, you can use I think you had another word there. It could look like perseverance. It could also look like stupidity.
Stupidity, right?
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
Denial.
100%. And there was always just this aspect of like it's right around the corner.
Okay.
A
big payday,
something.
an exit. Were you guys thinking like maybe somebody wants this?
Yeah. I don't know why we thought that, but I think we thought that.
Because some people, they're like, no, this is the business. I'm going to run it forever. This is the lifestyle I want. That wasn't necessary. I mean, that lifestyle you didn't want, but maybe if you could make 20% more, 50% more, work 20% less, 50% less.
Yeah.
There was still the carrot, the elusive pot of gold somewhere.
I don't know, man. Sometimes inexperience and ignorance can help you get through certain things. And looking back, it wasn't that bad.
Sure.
We were broke,
right.
like really, really broke. But it was, I don't know, it was still fun. Fast forward to 2008, still, working with the company in Atlanta, still running that, going back and forth, working out of my own home, which wasn't a real thing, then. So I didn't really meet anybody in Nashville outside of our church community. Mm-hmm. And then I really just was like, man, I need to meet some people, entrepreneurs, business people, whatever. So I saw this video on YouTube, and it was the very first bar camp here in Nashville. It was held at the Exit Inn, and it was the closing remarks from the two people that hosted it. There was a white guy and a black guy giving these speeches. I'm like, man, if I could just meet one of those guys. They seem to be really plugged in. Well, come to find out, that's Dave Delaney and Marcus Whitney.
That's right.
And fast forward a few years, spoiler alert for those of you who don't know, I ended up being the best man at Marcus's wedding, right? And legit, I see this YouTube video. I'm like, I just need to meet one of those guys. Well, I don't meet Marcus for a number of years after that. I did meet Dave. So 2008, I'm like, one way you can really meet some people if you throw in an entrepreneurial event. It's a great idea when you don't know anyone.
That's right.
Nashville's entrepreneurial community was not what it is today. It was burgeoning. It was a grassroots effort, a lot of things going on. So I started trying to meet people, and the name Nick Holland kept coming up as somebody like, oh, you need to talk to Nick about throwing this event. So we ended up, this was February of 2008. We ended up throwing an event called Nashville Startup Weekend. We threw the first Nashville Startup Weekend. It was only like the 5th or 6th Startup Weekend around the world. It was super successful. We got Vanderbilt to let us do it all weekend, stay there. Got some in-kind sponsorships, and through this awesome event, 90, 100 people showed up all weekend. Anyway, Nick Holland's one of my best friends now. That led to my old partner at Big Web Apps was in this gang of 5, which was peer mentorship. I was like, man, that's exactly what I need. Told Nick about this, told another guy at Startup Weekend. And they're like, we've been thinking about doing something like that too. How do we get started? I'm like, well, it's supposed to be 5 people, and I just invited you two, so you two invite someone else. Well, one of them invited Marcus Whitney, and the other one invited David Quartz, who is at Studio Now that sold AOL and now at Fresh Tech. So anyway, these have been my peer mentors since 2008.
Amazing.
We still talk every single day on chat, text, but every single day. Wow. We are still mentoring. We are all 100% different people professionally. They are the reason why I ended up leaving Big Web Apps 2 years later. Just, the road had ended, for me to be there. And I remember we were at Satco at Vanderbilt just hanging out. And all of a sudden we weren't hanging out because all 4 of them were literally ganged up on me, berating me about you need to move on. This is you're hurting your career by trying to stick this out. And like, it was terrible. I drove home. All 4 of them called me out. That's not very far from my house. You know, it's a, I don't know, 9-minute drive.
Yeah.
All 4 of them had called me like, hey, you okay?
It was an intervention.
Oh,
It was an entrepreneurial intervention.
100%. 100% intervention. It felt
You had no idea. Ganged up on you.
zero idea it was coming.
You're there to eat some queso.
I don't know if they knew it was coming.
Sure.
Or if one person said something and all of them had been like itching to say something and just, oh, this is my chance. We've actually all experienced something like that with the ring. All of us have had major career changes because of basically getting beat up by our friends.
By each other. And if my memory serves me, I mean, at that point also, Nick, Marcus, Dave, I mean, those guys were doing pretty well, right? Like if I can place it exactly, I mean, again, we don't have to go
Nick
into detail, but
Nick had Center
he was
Source at
doing
the
Center Source,
time.
right.
He hadn't started Popular yet, which Popular was, then HubSpot came and looked at potentially acquiring it, decided not to acquire it, but they liked him. And that's how he's at HubSpot now. And he, I mean, crushing at HubSpot. Marcus was at Moon Toast. I don't know if you were around then. I still every now and then throw it. I'm like, together we know everything. Like, what?
That's something, right?
I still have my Moon Toast t-shirt. But yeah, Marcus was doing that. David was at AOL. He was at AOL at the time. And then they ended up buying Studio Now back out of AOL.
That's right.
And then he's now at Fresh Tech, which is a super cool company here in town. But yeah, I mean, just wild.
All right, so you're driving home.
Yeah, catch me back up. What year is this?
Yeah. You're driving home. You got the intervention happened. And is it like at that moment, then you called your founders and were like, I'm out? Or was there still a moment or a little bit of like, that was bad, but I still got this dream?
No, I knew it was time. So what I started doing is looking at the company that we had, Big Web Apps, and we were trimmed down. We had a good development operation set up in Ukraine. We had like, I don't know, $700,000 or $800,000 in ARR. Our renewal rates were fantastic. We just didn't know how to grow, and so I put together a plan that basically all of us were going to stop taking salaries. We were going to keep the development shop going, maintain it, hire one person to be kind of like a customer success rep. And if a lead comes in, which they would generally every now and then, their commission would be 100% of the first year.
Yep.
We'd pay them salary, renewal bonus, and then 100% commission of any new sales. Presented this whole thing. John was like, man, makes sense.
Yeah.
But you're not here anymore. Talk to Pat. And if Pat says yes, then I'm in. If Pat wants to keep going, then I'm in that too. And Pat just felt like there was, more room and decided to not go with the plan. So we ended up drawing, and this is now 2010.
Yeah.
Mid 2010. So I knew I was going to be moving on. So we had clauses that if somebody left, there was a buyout clause. Ended up triggering that. Very friendly exit. Yep. Still talk to Pat almost,
good.
A couple times a week. And then, September of 2010 was when I moved into the Entrepreneur Center.
Did you feel free? Hopeful? Scared?
Yeah, all of those things. Yeah.
Because that's 10 years of your life at that point. I mean, again, that was, a significant portion of your life at that point. Learned a lot, but maybe didn't feel like it in the moment. But at the same time, it's not like you left, I don't know what you left on the table, so to speak, but it's not like you might have thought the next big thing was just around the corner, but how many kids do you have at this point?
3.
So a lot's changed with life, but you've also got a good group here. So you've changed.
I was growing for sure. I was learning new things. I definitely self-doubt was like clicking in pretty hard. So I really wanted to, I didn't really necessarily like have to start a company. I just knew I wasn't going to probably be a good fit for a big company, right?
Okay. Because what was on your resume at that point? What was the skill set that if you had to go find a job, what would you have looked for?
I mean, I changed a lot of diapers,
Sure.
made a lot of cold calls.
Okay.
I can make a great cocktail. These are the things.
Jack of all trades. I love it. Right.
Yeah, like I just described like a really good friend.
Yeah, you're perfect for entrepreneurship.
Not sure if you want to pay that person.
That's right.
Just the sales side of it. I knew, Stratasan. I mean, this kind of leads to like Stratasan, healthcare data analytics software company. I've been running a software company, but healthcare data analytics software company. I had never worked in healthcare. I'm not a data analyst or a data scientist, and I've never written a line of code.
Sure.
So let's do it. What I did have is, if you look around Nashville at the time, correct me if somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. The only true SaaS company at the time, Emma, Glenn Smith, Emma, all that great team. There were products, right? But really true SaaS company. So I did kind of consider like, man, I do have like real SaaS experience. There's this healthcare thing that seems to be pretty prevalent in this town.
Right.
Unbelievably welcoming community. So I started networking to healthcare things. Once again, not necessarily looking to start something, but like, man, is there a startup around this world that I could kind of plug into and help grow, right? It's kind of SaaS model. And ended up, that didn't really find anything like that. Ended up with, I think, like a whiteboard of like 52 different ideas.
Okay.
Meeting with healthcare people. And quite honestly, we a mentor and I had narrowed it down, we were narrowing down the list of what we were going to start. And I wanted it to be these three. Stratasan wasn't one. I didn't really like the idea of Stratasan because being from a SaaS world, and not knowing healthcare and not knowing how sometimes it can be behind on technology, I was just like, man, that's got to be, like, that can't be a real opportunity. And the mentor was like, I want you to add this one back. Just do me a favor, just add it back and see. So I started doing product market fit calls and calling healthcare companies and asking them about it. And like kind of find out, it seemed like there was an opportunity there. So could I apply SaaS experience, find healthcare experts, which, Nashville's has a ton of, build a tech team, build a data team, and then launch the company.
And that's, you heard about the EC.
Yes.
You were like, oh, this is where I can go with this idea to make it happen.
Yeah. So many times the unsung hero of the EC is Janet Miller. So I want to give Janet a shout out. All the efforts she was put, there was a ton of effort. There were a ton of people. Sometimes I feel like Janet's name doesn't get mentioned enough. And the efforts then, it was interesting. And I was like, man, like I need help.
Yeah.
Right.
So real quick, what just I need help, because I think entrepreneurs don't say that phrase a lot, even though every one of them feels it. You've always been that way, or the previous decade made that easier to admit?
I think both. I mean, my personality, I don't, I'm not a super, like, I don't know all that much. Like, I love learning. I love being around people. I do love learning from other people's experience. And I don't mind not knowing. I don't mind asking the dumb question or whatever it is. And I actually like, that's just something I don't mind doing. To your point, a couple of months into the EC, other people started moving in, because when I first moved in, literally I was helping Michael and Sam pop up tables. Yeah. We didn't have furniture yet. Lower Broadway. We were borrowing Wi-Fi from the Hard Rock across the street. It was a real deal. Yeah. Day one of EC, and months go by and people move in. And I can't remember which entrepreneur it was, but somebody moved in, and we were in one of our sessions, and they're like, "Man, why? Like you've run a company for 10 years. Why are you here?" I'm like, "Because I've run a company 10 years, and I know how much how much help I need." Right. And I think that's actually something that many very new, very young, first-time entrepreneurs, it's lost on them that other people's experience, they shouldn't dictate what you do, but really listen like for that mentorship. I'm big on finding mentors, using mentors, and remembering that it's your decision, right? You know, utilize their advice, hear it, roll around in it, but then eventually, especially like let's say you have investors, because at the board meeting, they're like, well, you missed numbers by a lot. Well, yeah, but I talked to Sam Davidson and he gave me this advice. And I'm like, who? I don't care.
Yeah.
Like what?
Exactly.
So find mentors, use them, but it still is your decision. That's you know, that's your job, is going to call through that and apply other people's learnings, other people's experiences to like your unique situation.
And so you walk in with an idea, a pitch.
A bad one.
A bad one, yeah. You sit down with Michael Bertram, and he listens, so there's that.
Yep.
And then he says...
So back up 24 hours. 24 hours. So I had been invited to an EO event, Entrepreneurs Organization. And I'm like, I don't qualify. But I got invited like several times, right? And I hit up Samira, who was running it, and she's like, no, your name has come up a lot. You should come. And I'm like, I don't. When there's rules on a website and like you don't qualify unless you do this, and you don't hit any of them, you're kind of like, I'm going to fill out a place, right? So I declined. And about 2 days before, or a day or two before the event, somebody said, you know, Michael Bertram, that's going to be running the EC, that's now, I didn't know Michael at the time, is going to be at that EO event. Called back, hey, can I change my RSVP to yes? Because I legit just wanted to meet, introduce myself, and ask if I could come in and pitch. So it was like 10 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night. So it's not during the day. It was the Palm, I think, and we drinks. Find Michael, introduce myself. He, of course, very gentle in this person in front of him, like bombarding his space. And I tell him, I was like, hey, I hear what you're doing at DC, and I feel like, you know, I'm working on this idea, and I would like to come and pitch. He goes, that sounds great. It's like, cool. He's like, how about tomorrow at 8? Awesome. Except I have no pitch deck. I got nothing.
Oh,
got nothing. So I'm like, you know, looking on the internet for pitch decks. And so show up at 8, pitch, feel good about it, actually. I hadn't slept, but I felt good. Right. And one of the things that Michael points to is like, this is the worst pitch I've heard. Is my org chart was a pie chart.
Great.
Yeah.
Where did you get that idea from?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
It was probably like at 3:45 in the morning.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that take off in the last
great.
13 years.
Felt great. Yeah, I did not. Yeah, that trend didn't happen.
That's right. That's all right.
So I ended up moving in that day. Michael's like,
so he's like, that's terrible, but here's your, like,
well, he goes, it's
there's
terrible.
something here with you, with the idea there's something, and he has a knack for that, of course.
And he followed it with, and if we're going to do what we have positioned ourselves to do, then you're the type of entrepreneur that we should be able to help. Great. And he said, so when you like get started, I'm like, I haven't eaten. So I legit, he goes, oh, you mean you're moving in today? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I went down the street to Piranha Brothers, was a ripoff of Pittsburgh's Permane Brothers. Had a sandwich, came back, and helped them set up some tables and got to work, which whatever that means.
Right. Throwing out the pie chart.
Yep.
And then, so what were those early days of the EC, but then also the early days of what became Stratasan?
Yes. So it was Health Data Source at the time. Man, I love that name. Except every time I tried to talk to someone, they're like, so we will just buy like health data from you? Like, oh, no. We have the data, and then we're going to turn it into other things. So I had to spin off of that. Really good idea. I was in the EC for about 9 months. So May 18th of 2011, we signed our seed capital round, and we moved out and really got to work.
And did I can guess, but walk us through the if you can sort of compare contrast then the driving to Atlanta with the recently purchased car, sleeping, subletting, all of these things, sleeping on couches, subletting, versus I have seed capital. We're moving out and using the seed capital in this way. Did you feel grown up? Did you feel like this was going to make you happy, rich, successful, influential?
I don't know about any of that stuff.
Fair.
But strangely, our funding partners were up on Church Street, and this is once again the EC was down on Lower Broad and Second. And I still don't know why this happened, but they actually handed me a check for the money.
Right.
So I have a $700,000 check that I'm leaving this meeting, and I walked. So I'm walking. I've got this check in my front pocket. Yeah. I legit feel like it's going to fly out of my pocket.
That's
somehow.
Right. That's right.
Physics are all going to go out the window, and I'm going to lose this check on the way back. So I'm walking back. Brian Daly, co-founder of Stratasan, was eagerly waiting for me to get back because we were actually going to be able to pay ourselves something. And I remember the Pinnacle Bank right behind where the EC is, the Pinnacle Bank on Second. I go in to deposit this check, and I legit, I feel like there are going to be balloons and confetti.
That's right.
Because this is a massive.
Yes.
I mean, this is like maybe the biggest transaction they're going to have that year.
If I remember for what you said 20 minutes ago, that was your ARR at the previous company.
Yes. This is a big number.
Yeah.
And I legit thought there was going to be at least an assistant manager was going to come out and
or Terry Turner, is somebody going to come out and
thank
congratulate me, right?
Mr. Moore,
shine my shoes.
Really appreciate you trusting us with all of this money.
That's right.
Well, none of that happened. It was just like a deposit slip back. And I legit was standing there like, man, is that it?
Yeah.
And
how big time do I got to get?
Maybe I should have taken a picture of that check before they shredded it. Whatever. And so I don't know where we're going with this story, but
well, you got funded.
We got some funding.
So you can move out.
Yep, you can moving into E-Spaces in Belmead, which is no longer there. Used to be above Publix. Full circle back. Now working out of E-Spaces in the Nations.
That's right.
And,
with your next idea. So those days you had done what Michael thought could have been accomplished, why the EC was stood up in the first place. Here we go. We've gotten you funded. You've leveraged mentors and resources and knowledge and connections. Now you're for real. Again, you're for real because you were going to put in the work before that, but now you're funded. For real.
Yeah, we have an opportunity to go try to do what we said we were going to do because kind of I don't want to keep saying circle back.
You can,
but I can.
That's the name of this.
Circle back.
That's right.
Circling back to the EC's original tagline. I'm going to get it wrong, but generally directionally correct. Was they were there to help an entrepreneur create their investable story.
Okay.
Right, and that's what they did. I walked in, worst pitch ever. 9 months later, I have some seed capital from an institution. I think this is where you yada, yada, yada. And 11 years later, we sell the company for 9 figures.
Did you think the next part of the journey post-funding, did you know what that was going to look like? Did you have a vision? Oh, we're going to be this big. We're going to make this much money. I'm going to be this CEO who yada, yada, yadas. I mean, what was there a vision at that point?
There was.
Because there was one you cast enough to get $700,000.
Yeah. And what's really fun, and Brian and I talk about this a lot. Brian and I still stay in touch quite a bit. The North Star that we had set then was generally what we ended up doing.
Wow.
Which is, as you know, as an entrepreneur, I mean, that's not all of that common. We didn't know what it looked like. The world obviously has technologically, my gosh. But it was generally what we had set out to do, which was that's kind of fun, right? To kind of think back and, you're talking about vision and, man, the vision I had then, or we had then, once again, so different than what it ended up being. And so worse, actually. So much worse than what it ended up being. I mean, I say it all the time, that the go-to-market strategy that I'd put together was really to go after like small rural hospitals, sell to them. Maybe we would get a regional player at some point, and then eventually someday, years down the line, we could sign a HCA, LifePoint. Well, 4 months after funding, friend of a friend, favor, we end up signing LifePoint to 2-year deal, $298,000 a year.
Yeah. First customer? One of the first?
I think it was our first real customer.
Yeah.
We'd done some project work for a little bit of cash, but like really actually what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
You want me to tell that story?
Yeah.
So, friend of a friend literally met at like a backyard barbecue. Actually, a backyard chili cook-off. And met a lady by the name of Melissa Waddy, who had just left HCA and had been brought on to LifePoint to be the senior director of strategy. And our mutual friend, when he heard what I was trying to build, he goes, that's what my friend Issy does. And I'm like, and everybody says that, right? I mean, like, oh, Stratasan. Oh, yeah, that's what my brother-in-law does. And he's actually, I don't know, he somehow related to healthcare. He drives an ambulance. Yeah. And, but like anything related is like, oh, that's what they, but actually, this is exactly what Issy did. And so she graciously, let me have a meeting and we chatted and we really got to like hit it off. And because I was like not trying to sell her, I was actually trying to find out what she as a director of strategic operations for a large, national health system would want to do. And she really graciously like showed me. They had the same vendor for 13 years. And I don't know, a couple months later, we would talk every now and then. And a couple months later, she hit me up. She goes, hey, we're going to RFP for what you're in. I don't reply, but I thought you might want to see our RFP to kind of give you a kind of help your roadmap. I'm like, that's golden.
Yeah, right.
Like, yes, please. So she sent it over. I read it over a weekend, and I'm reading this RFP. I'm like, I think we can do this. Like, legit. We can't do it now. We don't have the software. So over the weekend, I got super brave, and I was going to call her Monday to say, look, I know I don't need to reply to the RFP, but can I? Right? So Monday shows up, and man, I can't muster up the courage. But Tuesday, I'm going to do it. Okay. Tuesday came and gone. I think Wednesday, I don't want to carry on the story. It was Wednesday or some day after that. I actually call her. Yeah. And I said, hey, I don't expect to win this at all. I know this is a big favor. But if I did reply to this RFP, would you mind having your RFP review team just look at it and just give us feedback, right? And she goes, I don't mind doing the favor, but you are not going to win. I'm like, 100%.
Right, yeah.
That's silly. Truly, I really did want that as the win. So she reads it, calls me, says, how serious are you on this response? I'm like, everything's in there. It was basically like, here's what we can do, which is like 2% of the RFP. Here's what we can do in the time frame, because this was June, July, something like that, and they weren't launching until January. Oh. So I'm like, this is what we can. This is what I very much feel we can build, but before January launch. And then this is part of the RFP that if it's okay, priority wise, if we can continue building this alongside you as a partner, then we'll put a plan together. So she says, okay. And damned if we didn't win. Wow. And right before they signed, she calls and she goes, hey, my boss asked me a pretty good question. I said, okay. Once again, so I'd put a 3-year deal, $298,000 a year in front of them. She goes, my boss asked me a pretty good question. I go, what's that? She's like, basically he said, why in the hell do we sign a 3-year deal with a company that hasn't been around for a year? It's like, wow, that's a really good question.
What's the answer to that?
How about 2?
Okay.
And I kind of explained, like, we're going to need investment. We're going to have to, hire people and invest. And man, they signed it. Like, and that totally, if we would have gone, or if that wouldn't have happened, and we would have tried to do the go-to-market strategy that I had put forth, we would have gone out of business in less than a year for sure. We would not have made it. Once again, not knowing healthcare, there are advantages to coming into the healthcare space without having some of the baggage, but there are also things that being in the healthcare space is a real advantage. Right. And that was one of them. It was like I had very much miscalculated what that would have looked like.
Sure.
And if that wouldn't have happened, I don't think we would have lasted a year.
Well, there's this kind of through line, if you will, of serendipity, of course. Everybody's got that. But to your point about just asking, hey, or when you get offered, do you want to see the RFP? and just asking like, hey, could we reply to it? It strikes me that is something that you've exhibited, this I need help, this let me join with these other guys to talk about this element through your life and through your entrepreneurial journey of like, let me take a shot. I can figure it out, or I can get pretty close. And then relying on who can help.
Yeah.
And
Issy, once again, we became great friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people saw us in public together and like assumed that we had known each other a long time. And we really met through this basic RFP process. But she was growing rapidly in her career, ended up being one of the highest ranking people at LifePoint, at corporate. And we were kind of doing this journey together, very different journeys, right? She was growing in a really well-respected corporation, and I was building this little thing. And I think we were, scratching each other's back. We had a really, really strong partnership. Unfortunately, she's passed on, but she definitely changed my life.
And as you're growing Stratasan alongside that, or as part of that, one customer leads to another, growth leads to growth. Do you guys ever, especially say the first 5, 6, 7 years, man, look what we got something pretty good here. Is this, again, different than the plan that you had when you left the EC with your seed money? Was there amazement? Was there confusion? Was there still a level of hope? Was there, this thing, we're riding this thing. We're going IPO, baby.
Ooh, man, I can say this. I never thought that.
Okay,
that last
fair,
but all the other
others.
I mean, you've been an entrepreneur a long time. All of those, and and then you start the next day because you have all those emotions in one
right.
day.
That's
and
right.
then it's like you wake up and do it again. And what I do now with my partner Haley, we have an advisory firm for growth and startup and growth companies for go-to-market and operational maturity. Because working with entrepreneurs is like the most fun thing. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
And now I get to do it. I get to experience all of the gambit of emotions with virtually none of the stress. Just like this utopia.
Yeah, eating popcorn, watching. And
It's
you're
unbelievable.
Like, oh, look at this.
And we're really with them, like the highs. Actually, one of our, I was at my office this morning. One of our clients is actually at eSpaces as well. And I get a knock on the door. And he was pumped because he had just gotten off a demo and gotten a verbal from a pretty big contract for them. And just like getting that, unbelievable, like just jazzed up. Also, I would say minimum of 30% of what we do is therapy. Yeah. Because that's really, there's a ton of consultants that can do a lot of things. Change management, that ain't me. Right. Don't have an MBA. Wouldn't get into Georgia now. I wouldn't get in the EC today. Like
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, I do. The worst pitch ever would not get accepted today. I see the companies that are getting accepted today, and I was not close. But watching that happen is one of the coolest things. I mean, tears quite often. Yeah. Because this is hard. Like, it's really hard. I think the only thing you can compare it to is trying to convince somebody that doesn't have children how hard having children is. It's just impossible to know, right? Yeah. It's not like your life is more difficult than that person's. It's just you can't experience it until you have it. And I think it's the same thing as being an entrepreneur. It's like you cannot understand. So I don't bring an MBA. I don't build very pretty decks, but man, we can talk about scar tissue and really talk about like what's really keeping you, Sam, up at night. Like, how are you doing? Right? That's one of the questions that we try to ask the most. Is if we're in the middle of a conversation, you can see it. Yeah. You can see them wearing it, right? And just like pause okay, let's put this business shit aside for a minute. Yeah. Like, how are you doing? Like, for real, how are you doing? How are you and your partner doing, right? How are you and your spouse doing? It's such a critical component. Entrepreneurship is lonely. That's no secret. Peer mentorship is one of the greatest things that happened to me. The Ring of Five, Marcus, Nick, David, and now LaShawn. And, we started that in 2008, October, I think 8th of 2008. So we're pushing on, 20 or 16 years? Mm-hmm. That's wild. I mean, that is wild.
Yeah, especially knowing the journey of some of those guys too.
Yeah, it is just, it's, so like you really need support. Mm-hmm. You mentioned asking for help and being willing to really put yourself out there. That like, I don't know what I'm doing. I think it's probably one of the best skills that an entrepreneur could have.
Do you, as Stratasan grew, was there a feeling of, because you were having success in ways that were different than your prior company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mostly you were having it. And was there did you feel more protective? Did it feel fragile? Was there sort of a yin and yang of like, hey, this is going well, don't screw it up, as opposed to just like, oh my God, I'm actually doing something this time could be really big and lucrative and important and special, but coupled with, there's a lot more pressure now though.
Yeah, you're never really out of the woods if you're building a company like we were building Stratasan.
Okay.
Some people use the word lifestyle business as a negative, and I'm like, so the fact that she has built a company and she's making $4 million a year, like,
and pick
to herself.
Yeah, gets to pick her kids up on time every day. That sounds awesome.
Sounds like a pretty good lifestyle.
Yeah, sure.
Like, sign me up for that, right? I didn't have that journey, right? I would have, if that was, absolutely. Like, check. So it was always pressurized. The number one thing I miss is the people.
Okay.
The real relationships.
Yeah.
The number two thing I don't miss, there's a number one thing, but a number two thing I don't miss is 100 employees. And it's not because of the people. It's not like that's not, it's the 100 employees, and they probably represent, 2.5 to 3 people, counting their family. And the pressure that comes from knowing that Stratasan, is supporting like human people in their lives. We talked about it a lot. It was such an unfair trade from employer to employee. Like, all I give you is a paycheck, and you give us everything, like time away from your family, time away from your friends, time away from your hobby, your talents, your energy, sleepless nights, and legit all you get back from me is a paycheck. That is an unfair trade. But somehow it works, right? Like somehow you go in and band together, and it can be pretty beautiful.
So last question I have about Stratasan, and then we'll talk about what you're doing now. Why did you sell it?
It was time. We ended up recapping in 2019. So signed our seed round in 2011, recapped in 2019, brought on some unbelievably great financial and operational partners. Fulcrum Equity Partners out of Atlanta, Frisk Cressy here in town. They were pretty new at the time, Frisk Cressy. And then Blue Heron out of Richmond, Virginia. Quick story, Frisk Cressy, Chris Booker is now the managing partner there, general partner. He was the associate that found us for our seed capital. So other than Brian Daly and myself, Chris Booker has like the most time spent at Stratasan than anyone else. So shout out to Chris. So why do we sell? So we recapped in 2019. The next 3 years, it was like 3 years and 3 days. We tripled in revenue, about doubled in size. So we were starting to show some scalability. We weren't scaling, we weren't profitable. But we were attractive to a buyer. We were kind of running a process, kind of a very small closed process just to test the waters. And somebody came in and pitched us a vision. It felt really good. It's not how it ended, but
sure.
The vision, it was basically the vision that Brian, myself, the rest of the senior leadership team were wanting to do in the next 3 to 5 years. But bringing on this partner and this capital and being acquired could fast forward to that 18 months, right? To 18 months instead of 5 years. And that sounded really good. Once again, the people and the employees, it looked like a real opportunity to advance a lot of people's careers, including mine.
Yeah.
I was really excited about sticking around and maybe IPOing. I never thought Stratasan would IPO, but I was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
So that could have been interesting.
And with that recap, different level of expectations placed upon it?
So our original seed capital was not a great fit. No SaaS experience investing, on the investor side. No healthcare experience. No real startup experience, right? So, but it worked, right? Would I change it? No. We got where we did. But in 2019, the partners we brought on, man, they were like real pros. They were just unbelievable. I mentioned most Wadi changing my life. There is really good financial partners out there, and I landed 3 of them. It was such a fun 3 years. We grew by 3x, and I swear I didn't know it. It was just we were working together. We really had, I would say, damn near everybody, if everybody, was very happy. They knew what was expected of them. They knew how they were going to be deemed successful. They were given autonomy to go do the job. And, we had built a good management team that learned how to hold people accountable, right? And if you give those people, build your core values and then manage through those 4 kind of quadrants, know what you're supposed to do, how you can be deemed successful, give a leash, let you go do your job. And then let's talk about it, how good we're doing or bad. I think you can create a really good company that way. I think that's what we did. And we had a team of people that would have run through a wall, not for me at all. And I don't even know if it was for Stratasan, like the healthcare data analytics.
The logo, yeah.
It was, I think, for each other. It was cool, man. It was really, really a fun time.
And you get out and you're now doing something different. You mentioned, the support you provide to entrepreneurs on the sort of informal therapy side.
Yeah.
But what else are you and Haley doing now? And tell us a little bit about the bourbon side if you want.
All right. Well, let's get back. So Fulcrum Equity Partners, right after I had left the previous company, they hit me up and asked if I wanted to be what they refer to as a venture partner. A lot of people see that on LinkedIn and like, dude, partner. Yeah, not a partner. It's one of those. Yeah. It's like, yeah, not a partner. But they are very, very partner-like. I really enjoy that team. Basically, I help with deal flow and due diligence. And so, I've got assigned a board seat to a really fascinating company, Canvas AI. And it's so much fun to see that side of the table. We'll talk about learning from others and asking questions. That's a totally different game. One of the biggest things I've learned is I don't want to be on that side of the table full time. That's a different level of work that I just don't think I'm as suited for. Man, I really just fortunate. It's a very part-time gig, but man, it's amazing. DNA Partners, main gig, like I said, helping startup and growth companies alongside Haley Devlin. Go-to-market and operational maturity and informal therapy. I don't know. Informal is not the right word, but unprofessional.
There you go. Yeah, unlicensed.
Yeah, unlicensed therapy is like, our trademark. And then, have a bourbon wholesaling company. That's a lot of fun being from Kentucky.
So do you consider yourself an entrepreneur now?
Oh, I guess. I don't know. Sure.
As you look back from where you are now, because you've clearly still got irons in the fire. Sometimes we talk to folks on here who are at the end of their careers, their formal careers. I don't think you're there. I don't know if you feel like you're there. You seem to be someone who is going to find something that's interesting, but I think find something where you can learn.
Yeah, learning is key. There's a challenge, all of it. I'm in this kind of professional nirvana state, right? Like I have full, like 100% brain stimulation, but virtually zero stress. Like it is just this wild, like, you want to talk about like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And that's, you kind of mentioned it like when we got funding with Stratasan, it was all these things. That kind of all felt similar tasks. But now it's like, man, like the pressure's kind of off, but I still get the full brain stimulation. I'm still learning from these entrepreneurs I get to work with, the funds that I get to work with. Like, it's just 100% go, but also it's pretty awesome.
Last two questions for a new, budding, aspiring entrepreneur, whether they're 8 or 80. Two questions for you to tell them. One of those is, what is a warning? Something you would warn them about?
Okay.
And then what is an encouragement? Something you'd push them forward on?
Okay. Remember when I sent you an email yesterday asking you?
Right.
This would have been a good thing
to think about? That's fine.
Given me.
No, because we from the cuff is what we find people actually.
All right. Warning. Know thyself, really, and know where you sit. And the company may have legs that are different than what you can provide. So actually, DNA, we talk a lot about going from the founder to the founder CEO to the CEO founder. And eventually, you just have to be the CEO and be able to run the company because nobody cares if you're the founder or not, right? And those checkpoints are very real. And there was a moment when I was probably transitioning from founder CEO to CEO founder that I didn't know. I really had to do a lot of soul searching to say, am I going to help or hurt in this next stage? I ended up feeling like I needed to give it a go, and I think it was the right call. But there were real checkpoints along the way, and I think it's most important because it's not just for the company health; it's also for your health. Because if just like anyone, if you're in the wrong spot, it's not going to feel good. It's going to be a drain on you. Yeah. Personally, it's going to hurt your personal relationships. So that's the warning. What was the other question that you didn't tell me?
I didn't prep you for? Where would you say, hey, lean into, watch out for this, but hey, jump in on that?
I think it's the exact opposite of what I just said, which is believe in yourself, right? Like most people can do more if they get out of their own way. Don't be afraid to ask the dumb question. It's really the best way to learn anything. It's probably going to be a lot less dumb than you think. It feels dumb because you think everybody else in the room knows the answer. It's usually not the case. Believe in yourself. Find mentors. Don't do this alone. Peer mentorship, especially. Use places like DC. Circle back. Well, that's a wrap on this conversation. This has been our chat on Circle Back with Jason Moore. Jason, thanks for your time, man. Absolutely, Sam. I'm really honored to be here and doing this with you. You bet. Thanks for listening to this latest episode of Circle Back. As a reminder, each Circle Back episode is brought to you through the generosity of the Beth and Randy Chase family. And be sure to subscribe and learn more about these podcasts at ec.co/circleback.